more than a decade, Dan Bilzerian showed the internet a life that looked almost impossible. Private jets, Vegas mansions, high-stakes poker, millions on display, and people kept asking the same question. Was all the money actually real?
It's crazy, I'm like worth $350 million. A lot of people equate money to happiness, and it's not. It's more freedom.
So how did you make your money then?
Playing poker.
You made it all playing poker?
Yeah.
Wow, that is insane.
Now Dan is running for Congress, and his federal financial disclosure says he controls more than $200 million in assets. But roughly $196 million of that apparent total comes from just two categories: a $146 million valuation of his Ignite shares, and more than $50 million in jewelry, artwork, furniture, and other personal property. And Ignite itself is tied to a federal fraud case involving Dan's father. So did Dan Bilzerian finally bring the receipt that proves everybody wrong? Or did a $200 million disclosure somehow create an even bigger mystery? Dan Bilzerian may have one of the most debated fortunes on the internet. He has said poker made him rich.
Poker made me the money that got me famous, right? Because I got famous probably in like 2014, and then it just kept kind of going up. And that's when I was going crazy. I basically bought everything I wanted when I was a kid, all the Lambos.
Critics have pointed to his father.
Does the perception annoy you that you're this guy who, is rich because of money you've gotten from your family, and the money won in gambling's kind of the cover for that?
It's tough, man. To me, it's so easily provable. Obviously I beat this guy f***ing Alec for like $40-ish million, and I'll take a lie detector test, I'll bet anybody, I'll lay the odds. I can prove this without a shadow of a doubt.
Others question how much of the Instagram lifestyle was actually his money. For years, there was no public document giving us a detailed answer. Then Dan decided to run for Congress in Florida. In July 2026, reporting on his amended U.S. House Financial Disclosure Report showed assets that appeared to exceed $200 million. This matters because congressional financial disclosures are certified by the filer as true, complete, and correct to the best of their knowledge, but they are not audits. Most values are reported in ranges, and Dan's biggest asset is a private company he valued himself. This time, we don't have to guess. Dan put the numbers on a federal filing. So, let's follow them. Dan's largest disclosed asset is Ignite International. He reportedly listed 146 million shares and valued them at $1 each. That gives him a claimed stake worth $146 million. Stop right there. That one number makes up most of the fortune, but the filing reportedly does not include an independent appraisal or recent outside transaction proving somebody would actually pay $1 per share. And Ignite has a complicated history. Federal prosecutors charged Dan's father, Paul Bilzerian, former Ignite executive Scott Relletter, and Ignite itself in 2024. Dan is not charged in that criminal case. Prosecutors allege that although Dan appeared publicly as CEO, Paul actually exercised the de facto control over major parts of the company. The SEC separately alleges Ignite reported roughly $5 million in sales that did not legitimately exist as 2020 customer sales. Those allegations have not been proven at trial, and now the $146 million number becomes a lot more important. Because if most of Dan's reported fortune is sitting inside Ignite, there's really only one question that matters. What would somebody actually pay for those shares? The filing proves Dan put $146 million behind the stake, but a valuation on paper and a buyer wiring $146 million are two very different receipts. And then comes the second number, and this one may be even harder to verify from the outside. Dan reported more than $50 million in furniture, furniture, fixtures, equipment, artwork, and jewelry.
Today I'm reacting to the top G, the real G, Dan Bilzerian's watch collection. The RM6501, this is the new chronograph, absolutely insanely rare watch made out of quartz NTPT. There's also a version made in steel and, if I'm not mistaken, also in rose gold. He, however, has the most expensive one, and that's the quartz NTPT, that's the carbon case. Okay, quickly put $750,000 on the counter. This is reference number 15412 BC. This watch swaps hands between $800,000 and $900,000. This watch was introduced in 2018. An absolutely unbelievable watch. This watch is worth between $575,000 and $600,000.
The filing reportedly does not give a detailed breakdown of that number or an independent appraisal. That does not mean it is false. Dan has displayed expensive watches, artwork, vehicles, weapons, and luxury furnishings for years, but the price someone paid for a luxury item and what somebody will pay for it later can be very different. So the two biggest pieces of the fortune are $146 million in private company shares, more than $50 million in personal property. Together, those two categories get us to roughly $196 million. So almost the entire headline number depends on assets where the real world resale value is not obvious. The filing also lists assets that are easier to understand. Dan reported between $1 million and $5 million in a personal Bank of America checking account, a Las Vegas mansion valued between $5 million and $25 million, plus a G4, vehicles, boats, and other assets, each worth millions on paper. And there is another receipt. Federal Election Commission records show Dan loaned his congressional campaign $1 million. That does not prove a $200 million net worth, but it does prove this is not a story where the only evidence of wealth is Instagram. Dan has said private poker games made him tens of millions, including a claim that he once won $50 million in a year.
And then you have stories where you beat you took Mark Wahlberg down for a big amount of money, right?
No, he watched the game when I was playing his billionaire neighbor.
How much did you take off his billionaire neighbor?
It's around 40-ish million, something like that.
50 million dollars
over probably 8 sessions, 8 or 10 sessions.
Heads up, or just like...
Yeah, just heads up. Just me and him just battling in his house.
His congressional disclosure reportedly lists poker winnings between $100,000 and $1 million in both relevant reporting periods. That does not disprove his old claims. This filing only covers a recent window. But for once, we have a federal disclosure putting an actual range around Dan's recent poker income. And that range is far below the massive annual numbers that helped build his legend. Dan also disclosed roughly $5.25 million to $25.5 million in liabilities, including a promissory note and an obligation to the Clark County District Attorney. And here's the part people love to skip. Assets are not net worth. You still have to subtract the debt. So suddenly, this isn't just a $200 million headline anymore. The answer swings depending on what a night is really worth, what the personal property could actually sell for, and where Dan lands inside that liability range. For years, the argument around Dan Bilzerian was too simple. One side said he made it all from poker. The other said none of it was really his. And this filing blows up both of those easy answers. Dan formally declared assets north of $200 million. Real cash, real estate, a real aircraft, $1 million loan to his own campaign. That's stronger evidence of real wealth than anything Instagram ever gave us. But it doesn't prove Ignite is actually worth $1 a share. It doesn't independently appraise $50 million plus in personal property. And it doesn't prove any of it converts to cash tomorrow. I own assets I value at this amount, and someone will actually pay me this amount, are two completely different claims. That gap is the whole story. So maybe we've been asking the wrong question for years. Is Dan Bilzerian rich? The filing gives us plenty of evidence that he is, but $200 million rich? That's where the receipts stop being simple. And for the first time, we're not arguing over an Instagram post. We're arguing over numbers Dan himself put on a federal disclosure. Dan Bilzerian disclosed more than $200 million in assets to Congress. Do you think the filing finally proves his fortune was real? Or do the $146 $46 million Ignite valuation and $50 million plus personal property claim leave too much unanswered. Let me know where you land. For more investigations into the money behind the claim, subscribe and tap in. I'm out of here.